Good night, everybody, and welcome once again to another Lime Vibe Live podcast. I'm your host, Yori Yarman Kemp, here from the beautiful islands of the Bahamas. I'm in the capital city of Nassau, New Providence. And thank you for joining me for another Lime Vibe Live podcast. If you have not done so, please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch page. That's Lime Vibe 77. That's Lime Vibe and the number 77 at Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Okay, please like, share, subscribe, and help us to grow our content. Grow our membership. Okay, it's August 23rd, and it's about 8:32 now in the Friday evening on the 23rd. And so we thank you for joining me again for another Lime Vibe Live podcast. So breaking news. I guess you guys probably heard this, but no, it's breaking news, man. Former President of Haiti, Michel Martelly, he's been sanctioned by the United States government, the Treasury Department, if anything, the Office of Foreign Assets and Control, OFAC. OFAC, he's been sanctioned because he's been accused of destabilizing Haiti during this transition period when they're trying to find a new president and new leadership. And they've also charged him with drug trafficking as well. So Michel Martelly's been sanctioned by the United States government and has gone through the U.S. Department of Treasury, U.S. Treasury Department, sorry. And so, I said Michel Martelly's been sanctioned for drug trafficking, They said today's action against Martelly emphasizes the significant and destabilizing role he and other corrupt political elites have played in perpetuating the ongoing crisis in Haiti, said Acting Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence Bradley T. Smith. The United States, along with our international partners, is committed to disrupting those who facilitate the drug trafficking, corruption, and other illicit activities fueling the horrific gang violence and political instability in Haiti. That's Bradley T. Smith. He is the Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, Bradley T. Smith. It's heavy charge. If you go to the Caribbean Magazine Plus website, that's caribmyplus.com, you will see the story. Then you'll see how the United States Treasury Department lays out the entire charge against Michel Martelly. And which is strange because I think Michel Martelly moves between Haiti and the United States pretty frequently. So, they sanctioned him, so what are they going to do? They're going to arrest him? Well, probably right now, Michel Martelly's in Miami. So we wait to see how this happens. So Michel Martelly, he's been responsible for all of it. He was a former president of Haiti, back when, after the earthquake. He was the first president after the Haiti earthquake in 2010. Let me go make sure. Let's see when he was inaugurated. He's 63 years old. He's known for his vivacious songs and dance. He's a former entertainer, as you may know. Between 2011 until 2016, yes, he was the first president elected after that disastrous 2010 earthquake that destroyed much of Haiti. So yeah, he mostly stays in Florida, like I said, and that's Michel Martelly. If you go on YouTube, you can see all his song and dance. He gets naked. I was surprised that Haitians voted for him as president because his shtick, his routine isn't very wholesome. I mean, he gets naked on the stage. He dances and he parades around. He's not very. He shouldn't. I don't see how people took him seriously. He was an entertainer. He did what he did. But I guess you can't really fault the man for his form of profession, and that's what Michel Martelly was. He was an entertainer, and he did it very well. He's a very popular entertainer. But now he's being sanctioned by the United States government for drug trafficking and trying to destabilize, Haiti during this time when they're trying to transition into a new president. So God knows what Michel Martelly's up to and what the United States government is up to. Well, speaking for a regional issue right now, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, they come up with another study, the Economic Survey of Latin America for 2024. They said that growth in the economies around the region remain weak, coupled with sluggish unemployment growth for quarter one of 2024. So that means the economies are slowing down, they're showing weakness, but also that we aren't really hiring anybody. Employment growth is very, very weak. So there's no investment, there's no dynamism. I guess that post-pandemic bump has really worn off now, and we're getting back to the same kind of lethargic economies that we've had over the past several years before the pandemic of 2020. So we're back to the same problems we had before the pandemic. And so the report also said economic growth in the region's economies remain weak. In the first quarter of 2024, the economy grew by 1.5% compared to the year earlier period. See? This was the third consecutive quarter in which the GDP of Latin American economy increased by less than 2%, and the sixth quarter in which growth has been lower than 4%. Recorded in the third quarter of 2022. Wow. So yeah, that's that post-pandemic. It's over, man. We got to get back to going back to the structural reforms that the Latin American Caribbean region was supposed to be doing before the pandemic. Before the pandemic hit, and before we had to reset everything, we have to get back on that track. We have to actually structure these economies where they actually can grow, and they can actually facilitate investments and growth and economic growth. There's no two ways about it. The IMF, the World Bank has been hopping on it for years, and it seems as if we can't get right. All right? We can't get right. And speaking of basket cases, the other story in Venezuela now, Nicolas Maduro is really digging his heels in, man. And as opposition forces gather across Venezuela, his opposition opponent, the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, is facing the possibility of being charged for murder in Venezuela because she's been involved in all these protests in Venezuela. Machado and other senior members of the opposition could soon face legal charges for deaths that happened during the wave of violence over the past few weeks after the presidential election in July 28. The Attorney General for Nicolas Maduro regime, Tarek William Saab, said. So she could be charged with murder. For inciting all of these people to protest against Nicolas Maduro, disputed bin, which he still has not released any of the election results. That's still up in the air. So he could be an illegitimate regime. But I think that, the United States government, they have their mind on other things right now, They're trying to get through their presidential election for November. They're looking at Kamala Harris, who we will talk about later on in this show. And so they're looking at a Donald Trump and Kamala Harris showdown for November for the U.S. presidential election. So they're not going to really pay attention to Venezuela up to now. Or anyone else for that matter. Not even Palestine and Israel. Not even Ukraine and Russia. That's secondary. And I think these people, they're taking advantage of that because the United States is preoccupied with its own internal politics. So another Spanish-speaking country, the Panama Canal Authority, has authorized that the draft starting immediately will be 50 feet as the Lake Gatun is projected to rise. They announced that the draft starting immediately will be 50 feet as Gatun Lake is projected to rise. An additional transit slot will also be added beginning September 1st. The additional slot brings the total number of passengers allowed per day to 36, almost at par with the 36 to 38 transits day seen before the drought forced the Panama Canal Authority to limit transit for the first time in history. There are 10 slots for the Neo-Panamax vessels, 20 for supers, and 6 for regular vessels. So yeah, Panama Canal is starting to open up now. The Panama locks are starting to open up, and the drought is being lifted off the Gatun Lake. And like I said before, I didn't know that Panama Canal was actually supplied by a lake. I thought it was a saltwater canal. No, it was a freshwater canal. And Lake Gatun was going through a severe drought. And they also said people actually drink that water too. So it serves Panama in a great deal by providing fresh water, fresh drinking water, and also it allows ships to travel through the Panama Canal. So there you have it. So they're going to start lifting the draft to 50 feet, and they're going to start letting up to 36 transits per day, 36 passengers per day. That's almost on par with where they were before the actual drought happened a year and a half ago. So that's good. Panama Canal starting to open. So that means trade is going to start to flow. And I can't say enough about trade. You know, we're already paying too much for goods right now. You know, and all these containers that are being blocked off between China and the United States, and you know these shipping just getting high price of oil, and now the Panama Canal was going through a drought. That's on top of the Israeli-Palestinian war that's actually put a block on the Mediterranean shipping lane, you know. And so this is what we're dealing with, man. This is why your goods in the stores are more expensive. This is why, you know, your MP3 player costs you $40 when it could actually cost you $15. This is why your eggs are now $10 per dozen rather than $3 per dozen. So this is what causes it. These blockages in the trade challenge. Like I said, we're going to talk about U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, Caribbean girl. You know, she is now the Democratic Party's candidate for President of the United States. And so she's going to run against Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump on the Republican side. And you just have to say, you know, you have to be proud of someone of a Caribbean lineage sitting at the precipice now of being the most powerful individual in the world. And I got to tip my hat to Kamala Harris. You know, even though I probably won't support her policies in any way, shape, or form, my heart has to go out to her because I feel so proud and empowered that someone from our region could produce someone of a caliber that could actually stand on the stage and be thought of as being the next president of the United States. God is good. God is good. He has blessed us. He's blessed us. I'm gonna play an excerpt from a story from CBS Morning News where they actually took out some of the best parts of her speech, her acceptance speech that was last night. So let's listen to that right now.
Begin with a history-making night on the last day of the Democratic National Convention with Vice President Kamala Harris officially accepting her party's nomination for president. Harris is the first Black and South Asian woman to accept the presidential nomination for a major political party. And as the vice president took the stage, she saw a sea of female delegates wearing all white, a nod to women's suffragists who fought and won the right to vote more than 100 years ago. In a passionate and fiery speech, the former prosecutor laid out her case to defeat former President Donald Trump in the election that's just now 74 days away.
With this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self. I accept your nomination to be president of the United States of America.
Well, the new Gallup poll shows Harris's favorability has grown 13% among Democrats and independent voters since becoming the presidential nominee. Joining me now for a full recap of last night is CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa. So, Robert, what we had heard about the speech earlier yesterday was that it was going to allow Kamala Harris to introduce herself to Americans who still don't really know her story. And one of the things that people said they wanted to hear more is about her policy. What will America look like should she become the president? Is that what we heard?
Good morning. Great to be with you from here in Chicago. Last night, Vice President Harris did try to introduce herself to the country. Being vice president is a position where you're able to, in some way, conceptualize an agenda, but you're really always following President Biden. And you're seeing right now with Vice President Harris, somebody who is also not trying to detail every single policy position at this point, because she's trying to focus more on the introductory phase of this campaign, which really only began about a month ago after President Biden decided to exit the race. What was notable was she decided to frame the stakes of this election by saying that former President Donald Trump, in her view, is a threat to American democracy. And she made an overture to suburban Republicans, urban Republicans, centrists, independents, those who might not be inclined to vote for her. She said that at this point, there's a choice between Trump and her. And it's really, yes, a policy debate, but it's also a stark choice as she sees it.
So during her speech, she certainly touched on a number of different issues, border security, to middle-class tax cuts, the war in Israel, between Israel and Hamas, and abortion. Here's what she had to say about the GOP's plan for reproductive rights.
He and his allies would limit access to birth control, ban medication abortion, and enact a nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress. And get this, he plans to create a national anti-abortion coordinator and force states to report on women's miscarriages and abortions. Simply put, they are out of their minds.
So just to clarify a little bit, you sort of led into that saying that this is the GOP's plan for reproductive rights. I'm sure the GOP would characterize it a little differently. This is the way the vice president understands it. I'm curious about reproductive rights and just how important of an issue you think this will be for the Harris-Walz campaign strategy. I think earlier in the year it seemed like abortion was going to be the issue. Since then, things like the economy, border, the war in Israel, that's all sort of come up as well as very important issues.
Those are all important issues. What's interesting as this campaign really starts to heat up is that abortion rights, just like in 2022 in the midterm elections, remains at the fore of the national debate. And Vice President Harris has carved out her own space inside of the administration as an advocate for abortion rights. And as she puts it, reproductive freedoms, she's put it really at the center of her own agenda, working with President Biden. And they believe that these issues will activate many voters nationwide, not just core Democratic voters, but those who maybe don't even vote, non-voters, but who will be pulled out to vote this November because they want to protect abortion rights. And we have seen ballot issues pop up across the country in places like Battleground, Arizona, where abortion rights will be part of the conversation, to be sure, in the final weeks of this campaign. And it's about Democrats also trying to take the concept of freedom away from the Republicans. Former President Trump, as we've covered him for the past decade, is tried to steal away some of the issues and positions from Democrats on matters like trade. He has spoken in a democratic way, a populist sense at times. And now, when it comes to the issue of freedom, or the word freedom, Democrats are trying to take that and make a pitch to Republicans that they are the party of freedom, not Republicans. So this is an ideological debate, a policy debate, but it's also one about a political framework.
So last night, there was no shortage of high-profile speakers, from Governor Gretchen Whitmer to Senator Mark Kelly, Eva Longoria, the actress, even former GOP Representative Adam Kinzinger. What were your sort of biggest highlights from the week?
the biggest highlight by far in terms of the political impact, two things. Vice President Harris's speech and Vice Presidential nominee Governor Tim Walz's speech. Political conventions have lost their power as convening gatherings for parties to fight out policy positions and to come up with a platform. What these really are about now is trying to get a few million people in the country to tune in, whether it's 10 million, 15 million, or 20 million, and see if they can pay attention to what the candidates are saying. Can they give them a real look, a real opportunity? And we hear a lot about celebrities, possible surprise guests, different moments that really capture people on social media, like when Oprah Winfrey came on stage, or Pink sang a song last night with her family on acoustic guitar. And there's no doubt that a lot of people really appreciate those moments, especially the Democrats in attendance. But at the same time, it's about Walz and Harris. Can they capture the moment? Can they be in command of the Democratic Party? That was what this convention was really all about.
Right. Robert Costa, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's the take on Kamala Harris's acceptance speech. You know, I wish her all the best, man. I wish her all the best. Even though I probably wouldn't support her in any way, shape, or form. And they're calling now abortion reproductive rights. I hate these euphemisms. There's an old George Carlin clip over on YouTube. Somebody just click George Carlin. Just search George Carlin euphemisms inside the YouTube search bar, and you'll come across this beautiful comedy routine by George Carlin, where he explains where we now soften these terms to mean something totally different, to make it seem like we've absolved ourselves from any sin whatsoever, of any wrongdoing. Like a baby killing and abortion is now reproductive rights. How sickening is that? And there she's on the platform fighting for it. You know, that people should actually report when they abort a life. Like, I don't see anything is wrong with reporting a murder. I see nothing wrong with reporting a murder. Same people are out of their minds. I think you out of your mind, Miss Harris. You're out of your mind. You know, because abortion is still wrong. It's still murder. Especially at the 9th month. Why would you even do that? You wouldn't be here if you were aborted the 9th month, Miss Harris. You know, let's think about these things, man. It's not about you. It's about everybody. It's about the life that's after you. That's why you're here, to reproduce for God's grace and glory. That's if you believe in God. Anyway, let's start back over our show from the top. Like I said earlier, that, you know, Michel Martelly, former president of Haiti, he's been sanctioned by the United States government for what they've called as destabilizing Haiti and drug trafficking. So, you know, we just have to watch and see what's going to happen with Michel Martelly. I'm not sure what Michel Martelly is. He could be still in the United States. That's the thing, because he lives in the United States. That's where he does most of his recording music, because he's a former entertainer, but he's still an entertainer. But that's where he does most of his recording, and he has a home in Florida. So they sanctioned him. So are they going to pick him up? Who knows? We'll have to wait and we'll have to see. Like I said, ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, said that growth in the region will remain weak for 2024, and unemployment and the employment rate has had a sluggish quarter one for 2024. So that means we've had weak employment rates and a weak economy going into 2024. So we're back to our pre-pandemic lethargy, you know, our pre-pandemic, you know, economic woes, where we weren't growing as much as we should be, because we failed to make the structural changes and the structural reforms that, you know, dynamic and modern day economies would need. And they also said that, you know, this is the third consecutive quarter where the GDP in Latin American economies increased by less than 2%, and the sixth quarter where growth was lower than 4%. So that's where it is, man. That's where it is. The other story was the opposition leader in Venezuela has been, well, she's alleged to be involved in a murder, and that the Venezuelan authorities, the Attorney General for Nicolas Maduro, said she should be charged with murder for inciting all of these unrest, these protests during after the election, post the election. So that's what we're looking at right now. So it could be where Marica Corina Machado, is now facing the possibility of being charged with murder because of these protests. And, you know, Nicolas Maduro wants to get rid of her. As you know, she couldn't stand in the last presidential election on July 28th because the Venezuelan Supreme Court said that she was ineligible. Okay, so she was barred from actually participating in the presidential election And so Edmundo Gonzalez had to stand in instead. And that's why the protests are happening, because Mr. Gonzalez said that he won 71% of the vote. Where Nicolas Maduro said he won 41% of the vote. And Mr. Gonzalez didn't poll very nearly as high as what he said was 71%. So this is where the rub is right now. That's why people are in the streets protesting in Venezuela. And all the international agencies from the United States, from Canada, from the OAS, they've been asking for the Maduro regime to actually produce the election results and all the ballots, so they can have a proper recount. And so that's gonna be hard for him to actually produce that for these international agencies. He hoping they'll just go away, and he hoping that the protests will just die down, and the opposition will just go their way. But they're not going anywhere, man. This is going to be going on for a long while. And we also talk about the Panama Canal is also increasing its draft to 50 feet. They'll also be increasing the amount of transits per day up to 36. So what they had prior to the actual drought that happened a year and a half ago, that's been going on for about a year and a half. So now Lake Gatun actually is now rising. The drought is signaling that it's coming to an end. And so now they're increasing the drought to 50%. So that means more ships can travel through the Panama Canal. So that's great news. That's great news for trade. And we also talked about U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris accepting the Democratic Party's nomination for President of the United States. And I thank you that she's accepted the nomination. She's a Caribbean girl, and we support her all the way. Even though I wouldn't probably vote for her, she's a Caribbean girl, and we love the fact that we've seen our Caribbean people raised to the highest level in the United States government. That's amazing. As you know, her father is Professor Donald Harris. He's a Jamaican. He was an economist. He was studied at Stanford. That's where he met his Kamala's mother. And so there you have it. So that's a show for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So I thank you for joining me again for another Lime Vibe Live podcast. If you have not done so, please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch page. That's Lime Vibe 77. That's Lime Vibe, the number 77, at Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. So thank you once again for joining me for another Lime Vibe Live podcast. I'll see you next week, Friday, God willing.